Love is taking all the rain to yourself. Welcome back, Mere Mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals Book Reviews. I am Juan, and we bring book reviews to you, Mere Mortalites, so we can transcend beyond mere mortality and grab the juiciness, the information that is found in every single book. And today, I'm going to be reviewing Love Stories by Trent Dalton. Now, who is Trent? Because he's a magnificent Australian individual that I did not know too much about. So he himself is, I'm just going to read this out. He's an Australian journalist and literary fiction author. He's actually written other books previous to this one, so Boy Swallows Universe, All Our Shimmering Skies, and he's actually won multiple journalism and literacy awards. When you actually, before I get stuck into that actually, so 333 pages of this book, Love Stories. And how did he actually write this particular book? Because it is quite interesting. I was going to give you a little bit of detail, but I will let Trent himself tell you all about it.
I've been wanting to do this sort of project where sort of artistically kind of stay in one spot and observe life. And I thought what better way than plot myself here on the corner of Albert and Adelaide Street in Brisbane and set up this dorky sign that just says, "Hey, sentimental writer looking for love stories. Do you have a story to share?" So they stop and they sit in the chair and we just go deep and we start talking about love. And I've just been asking them deep questions about who's the love of your life? Do you have a love story? And if they don't have a love story, they'll tell me a yarn. And then ultimately they always end up getting back around to love.
Brilliant. So the book itself is essentially a collection of love stories. As you saw, and you would have heard from Trent, he basically sat down on the street and just waited for people to walk by and tell him some love stories. There's actually some pictures at the back of this book as well. I'm just going to show it here to the camera of Trent just sitting down, and it's a sentimental writer collecting love stories. So essentially it was just waiting for some people here in Brisbane, my hometown, to come along and share things with him. And I think the biggest thing that you'll find throughout this book is that there's no big theme storyline per se. There is one story that actually spans between two different chapters, but it is just a collection of different stories by the ways of people coming up to him, having a conversation, him writing them down and bringing a bit of a summary behind it. There's also others where he offers information around his own personal stories and his own personal learnings, as well as little looks into the way that he sees love through almost his eyes and probably other people's eyes. One thing that I have found about Trent and what's making me actually want to go and read some of his other books as well is just the way that he storytells and almost speaks on the level of description to something. I'm actually going to read this out because there's probably a better way that it can be articulated. And I just want to find the right one so you can get to see just what a Trent Dalton sort of written note is. So right at the beginning, this is literally page 11, titled "To Believers." I'm just going to read out a couple of these sentences and you can get the idea. I believe we are not alone in the universe. Teachers are underpaid. Harold Holt drowned. The Big Mac still has a role to play on Earth. Connery was the best Bond. There is no best Beatle. Vegemite never goes out of date. Preventions and cities are equally valid. Injecting rooms of work. Test cricket is not dead, but Elvis is. I believe that somewhere in the world there's a woman who has tattooed the true meaning of life on the upper inside of her left thigh, and it goes on and on. So just the way that he's able to play around with words, especially as it's sort of peppered in with the stories that he's just trying to tell verbatim from people who are communicating, just makes for a really fun read. And it was actually, well, being 333 pages, I read it really quickly for me, so I really enjoyed it for that fact. And then coming out to the theme of the books, which probably helps to explain a lot more of this book, is it's love. That's really the big takeaway. The big theme in this book is love stories and the fact that love sits in such a varied way across different types of individuals. Now, yes, Trent was sitting in Brisbane, one city, and talking to, I'm unsure, let's just say 200 individuals to understand what is love to you. Tell me a love story. But even in just that small sliver of individuals, he was able to find crazy amounts of different loves, if you like. One of the key examples, I think I noted it down, was there was a story of BDSM love and the way that that particular interaction actually works, or the dynamic, you might say, and how love is found there. But then there was also the examples of long love, of individuals being together 50, 60, 70 years. Examples of love where someone's actually passed away and the love still remains for that individual who's passed away, but they're also with another individual. I think one particular lady had been or married 3 different individuals, all with the name starting with R. I can't remember specifically what the other ones were, but I do remember the last one was called Ron. But he was able to just share really sad love stories, really fun love stories, really quirky love stories in almost the same storytelling way that always had you reading the particular chapter. And while it was short, it sort of left you with a really great understanding of who that individual might have been, what sort of ticked for them, what love meant for them. And you got a glimpse into more the realities of other humans. I think maybe said another way, because I know the word NPC is being used a lot in my friendship group, but it almost moved me away from seeing people in just that's another human, to, oh wow, there's a lot of depth just to even the individuals across Brisbane or your hometown. And that's not something that is unknown to us, but I think we often don't read or see that there's stories in absolutely every single person. I'm sure, if pushed for you guys, for me Immortalites out there, you could probably produce a really great love story. I'm sure I could produce a really great love story if I needed to, or find one in there. But it just helped the understanding of the theme of love to go, oh wow, there are so many individuals, me personally in my life, that I go, whether it's family, whether it's previous partners, that I go, yeah, there's a lot of love, and the love is actually quite different. And the way I could describe it to friends and have conversations with people, their love might be completely different to my love. And I know Karen always has a little bit of a conjecture with the wording love, and what actually is love. And I think it can be very, very biased. It can be very specific to oneself. Can you truly define it so it's absolutely generalized for everyone? No. And I think this book also helped me to see, no, you couldn't just say, oh, it's love, and land at a particular definition or a description. Now, a lot of times, the way that people described love in this book wasn't a straight definition by way of, say, a dictionary definition, although there was one individual who did try to define it that way through chemicals, but mostly through stories. Let me tell you an example of X, and that is what love is to me. And I think for takeaways, the big takeaway for me, again, was love, but also seeing individuals in different lights, especially when I think of what love is in a transition period. So, you might have loved someone as a partner or a family member, or you get really angry at them. And then just the true understanding of, actually, no, there's underlying love that still exists there, no matter sort of what might occur, depending on that individual that you've been with as well. But my other big takeaway is this particular book, I guess, it sits in nonfiction, definitely, but the way that it was written by Trent made me really want to read other books, obviously, that he had written, but other books that were almost related to either this topic or written in such a way. I mean, by that is probably reading books that have more little snippets of stories of society, of humans, because collectively what I found was that reading this book, and I've actually had this conversation with a lot of people afterwards, is that reading this book probably taught me more about the concept of love and what individuals might think about love as me to you, me immortal, talking about this through stories than probably I've ever read anywhere else. And I went, perhaps this might be a really great way of learning other things really, really quickly. Could I learn it by, reading 100 snippets of stories of someone? Let's just take swimming lessons. Could you get 100 different individuals to talk about, how they got to be better at swimming, or how they might have got into swimming, and find, collectively there's a lot of information there that you might retain better through stories. And I think the fact of the way that it was broken down in this particular book, broken down into very short stories that you're able to consume quite quickly, you got the concepts that Trent was trying to really extract from people, which was tell me the love stories and the love definitions that you find. And a lot of them really not imprinted in my mind, but I can definitely say that the consensus across all of this book and the love that it was trying to articulate was easy to consume, one, obviously well written, so it's a really good thing, but made the thread of love and the definition of love. Really easy to follow all the way through the book. Now, finally, what I recommend, first of all, for you to do, I would actually totally recommend you actually buy a copy of Love Stories by Trent Dalton. It's one of those ones that I think would effectively say would help change your view, no matter what your view is on love, whether it makes it stronger, whether it makes you less doubtful of it, perhaps it makes you have a clearer view of how others might see love. And I myself gave it a rating of 7.5 out of 10. So it was a really phenomenal read, easy to read, easy to consume, and I came away with it with a massive takeaway in terms of how I see love, the definition of love, and the way it can be very much a wave-like depending on the individual who you converse about with love. So that's Love Stories, Trent Dalton. I hope you have enjoyed the book review, Mere Mortalites, a short one, a quick one, but a good one hopefully this time around. If you'd like to support us, as always, send through a boostergram, a boost if you would like, and continue tuning in to all of the other Mere Mortal book reviews that will come. Mere Mortalites, that's all for now. One out.